Good evening, and welcome to Let's Talk with Lakshmi, a show about us, our people, our community, our culture, our experiences. And viewers, domestic violence is something that happens all of the time in our community, something that I prefer not to talk about, but it is something that we must talk about. It is my pleasure to bring on set today, this evening, none other than Sukree Boodram. Sukree, welcome to Let's Talk with Lakshmi.
Thank you for having me on your show.
You're welcome. Now, Sukree, I invited you down to Let's Talk with Lakshmi because I know you have a lot of things going on as far as domestic violence is concerned.
Correct.
I know you're very involved. You personally had a story, and I know you want to share that story a little bit with our viewers at home.
Yes.
First of all, I just want to ask you, where are you from?
Born at Blackbush Polder, Joanna North, Guyana. And moved here when I was 16, and I now live in a little town in Florida called Howey in the Hills.
Howey in the Hills. Now, Sukree, tell me a little bit about your background, your education, career-wise, family-wise.
I'm a single mother of two teenagers. I have a 19-year-old and a 14-year-old. And I educated myself. I went on to university, basically running away from an abusive relationship. And I educated myself. I have a master's degree, an MBA, and I'm also a CPA.
Wonderful. So you're obviously well educated.
I would say so.
Yes, definitely. Now, Sukree, you wrote a book.
Yes.
It's called BreakOUT. And in this book, we talk about domestic violence.
Right.
I'd like to ask you, what made you come forth? Because in our community, Guyanese women or West Indian women, Indo-Caribbean women, it's sometimes what we would say taboo. We don't talk about things like this, things like violence.
Right.
Okay, whether it be domestic violence, abusive, alcoholism, whatever it may be.
Right.
Tell me, and you're very young.
Right.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
You're very young. I mean, what gave you the strength to come out and start talking about your intimate stories of abuse?
My community, I live in a community, like you said, cultural barriers, traditional culture, growing up in a Hindu home, being around older parents, seeing abuse happen, seeing drinking, and thinking that's normal for me and that's acceptable. I didn't like how I was feeling on the inside.
Now, you said normal. Why do you use this word normal? You said you're seeing abuse around you, right?
Right, growing
up. And you said it's normal.
Growing up.
Why is this normal?
Growing up, the husbands come home drunk, they beat on their wives and their kids. I've witnessed it as a kid. So it's normal for me to think this is acceptable. The wives before me have endured this. My culture, my tradition embraces you're married for life, and wives being submissive to the husbands. All those norms put together, generations, form the way we think. But at some point in my life, I decided I didn't like the way I was feeling.
How were you feeling?
I was feeling as if I added no value to my marriage, no matter what I did, no matter what I said, no matter how I did it, it wasn't right. No matter what changes I made in my personality, no matter how submissive I became, my abuser didn't change. Continued to verbally and emotionally abuse over the years.
What's something that your, I'm going to say it's your ex-husband, is it?
My ex-abuser, yes.
Your ex-abuser. What's something that your ex-abuser did to you?
Okay, when I first got married, within 3 months, I did not know he hurt women or had the capability. I was in love. I got married.
Were you arranged marriage?
No, I fell in love. What was then I thought was my prince.
Okay.
Within 3 months, he hit me and bust my head in our bedroom. I was
Do you remember
2 inches.
why?
Yes, he came in drunk about 2 a.m. and I got up and I asked him, where were you? And it was, I fell and I hit my head on those heaters, and the force was like I flew, and my head was busted right here, 2 inches. I've never been hit in my whole life, and I was sharing an apartment with my sister and her husband at the time. I was so ashamed that I got hit. I was so scared to tell anyone, because this is private. I shouldn't tell anybody.
Did you tell anyone?
No, I did not tell anyone.
So then this happened again?
No, it did not happen again.
What happened?
I was never hit in my life. The next morning, I got up and I had a conversation. I said, I've never been hit in my life. If you ever hit me again, I'll tell everyone, and I'm going to leave. he never did hit me again. What I didn't know then, the physical abuse was not the only form of abuse. I didn't know emotional, verbal abuse, isolation, manipulation, financial, sexual, those are all abuse. So over the years, I used to think, oh, he can talk down about my family, talk down, curse, and say things, and I'm young, I'm strong, it's just words. But you know what happened? Eventually, after 2 decades, those words, they get to you. And it got to me. Even as educated I was, I thought I was emotionally strong. I found out I was not. I felt weak. I felt helpless. I felt no matter what I did, I will never be that perfect wife. My family will never be good enough.
So he now started to verbally abuse you.
Yes, continuously.
What are some things that he would tell you?
I'll try not to keep it clean on the show, but
Okay.
Lots of name calling and swearing and cursing.
Okay.
Everyone around me, interaction with friends or family, they're no good, they're this, your brother is this, your sister is this, your mom is this, I don't want them at my house, I'm not going with you anywhere. Isolation, domination, control, manipulation.
So now, tell me about this shame. You felt shame.
When
right?
I got hit, yeah, I was
You
ashamed.
felt shame. You're being verbally abused here.
Right,
You was physically abused.
right.
Now you said that you're feeling shame. Why would you feel shame? You didn't do anything wrong. This is someone abusing you.
I know. I felt ashamed because I thought I would be judged. Here I am, this educated person, seemed very, very strong on the outside. Believe me, and I worked very, very hard to keep that outside looking really strong. But on the inside, I was weak. I felt ashamed because I thought nobody would believe me. And people will judge and say, oh, she just went to school, she's just making it up. Honest to God, victims, they start to think things that may not be real. I started to think things that I found out later through counseling and through group support wasn't real. I was beating myself up. He was a really nice guy, everybody thinks. When he's in front of you, sweet as could be, but behind closed doors, a very different story. The one I'm sharing with the world to help change the way we think as a society.
Now I read something that said that you believe that abuse was now your faith and your destiny. Why did you say that?
At one point in my life, I said, you know what? This is going to be my life for the rest of my life, and no matter what I do, it is not going to change. I am just going to accept it the way it is. And you know what I became? An echo of my abuser. I started to drink myself and took prescription drugs. I ran away. That was my coping. Stick a headphone in my ears and just ignored it all.
So what did you do about your children? You mentioned you had 2 children.
Yes, they were
So now you
quite
started
younger.
drinking.
Yes, for about 2 years, for about
turning
18
to
months.
drugs.
I was a terrible mom. I was not a good mom. That's the one question I get asked that I do get emotional because I was not a good mom. And I made my apologies to my kids.
Okay. How old are they?
But I don't think I have forgiven myself for that. I think my son was probably 12, 13. My daughter was probably 8 or 9. And I now know I was the only sane parent.
Right.
And here is the same parent. And I remember yelling at them. And when I've talked to them, they don't seem to remember it. But I remember getting angry when I would come in the house just because they would want to talk to me.
So now you became abusive.
To an
Verbally.
extent, yes. It is amazing
It's a chain
how the
reaction.
mind works. Most abusers I learned as I educated myself echo behaviors of their own abusers. Whether those abusers were your parents, in my case, my ex-abuser. I said to myself, one of the turning points where my son was growing up, he was about 13, 14, he started to display what's called dry drunk anger habits.
Okay. Explain what that is.
Dry drunk basically are habits, symptoms of an alcoholic, anger, domination, control without drinking. And I believe very, very strongly that it could be genetic. It could be genetic, or it could be just mimicking the behavior of a father. It could be. I don't know. But he would get very, very angry. And one time he walked by and he punched a wall and made a hole in the drywall in the hallway. And you know what? I never repaired that hole. And if anybody comes to my house, it's just patched up. You know why I didn't repair it? That was my turning point. I said, you know what? I was a poor mom for a little bit. And I need to change. And whatever I needed to do, I needed to change. And every time I'd look at that hole, I said, if I don't stop the abuse from entering the next generation, my kids, then you know what? I haven't done much. I haven't done much. So I started to talk.
Who did you start talking to?
My eldest brother, a family member I trusted the most. And when I told him, at that point, I said, you know what, I don't care what anybody says. I have to face the truth. I have to come out of denial. I can't polish this perfect marriage anymore. It's causing me stress. Lives are being wasted. Life is just passing by. So I called him, and you know what, he came over. And you know what he did? God, I have to admit this on public television. I thought my ex-abuser had gra, like bad spirit.
Right.
So we did a gra puja. And I'm like, that's going to fix it.
It's all going to be okay now.
Yes, it was early morning. It was the perfect time of day. It's 7 o'clock. I live out in the country. We spread the sheet outside. We did it like every other Hindu wife or mother. This will fix it permanently. And you know what? I found out alcoholism is a disease. As soon as my brother left, my ex-abuser had some choice words for him. And continued to abuse. And that was painful because I really believed in my heart that will work. It must have worked all the generations. Here we are, hundreds of years later. It didn't work.
Now, what happened when you told your parents about this?
My mom, my dad passed away when I was 13. I told my brother, and he said, I said, something's going on. I'm not, my hands were shaking for years. I started telling my symptoms, and I have a sister in the medical field, and I went and talked to her. I had told him not to come to my home. I self-isolate. Now I'm not waiting for my abuser to tell me they can't come over. I'm way ahead of the game. So just don't come. I'm just gonna just fix this all myself. And my sister, I remember in January of 1987, I went to my sister's house and I said, I'm gonna fix this myself. I said, I don't want you back at my home. If I want to visit, I'll come visit you. I was just like making the pathway clean, protecting the abuser. You know what she asked me? She says, I'm going to ask you one thing. She already knew I'd crossed the line to insanity. She's in a medical field. She said, under one condition, go talk to a counselor. And I said, you know what, if that's what it takes for her not to come back to the house, I'm going to go talk to a counselor. And I did. You know what I found out? I had already crossed the line to insanity. And I went to counseling a year, lunchtime, 2 to 3 times a week. Didn't tell anybody other than a couple. Little by little, I got the courage. And the moment I broke the silence and I said no to domestic violence, my life started to change. I started to change. Exercise, eat, talk, go to counseling, pray, go to support group. My hat's off to counselors and support group. You know what, victims? It's a miracle if we can do it alone. In my case, I wasn't. So
That helped.
it helped.
Sukree, tell me about the day that your husband came home with a gun.
He did not come home with a gun, okay? We live in the country. There are guns everywhere. I own my own. We have 3 shotguns in the house. Kids grew up with it. We were in the bedroom watching TV. Son on my right, he in my middle, watching bedroom TV. He was gone all day. Mornings are good. Victims love morning because there's usually no abuse in the morning. But the evenings are bad. About 8 p.m. he walked in. No conversation. Just hi, hello. I'm getting the so-and-so out of here and I'm going to go get the gun and end it all.
So what happened?
I picked up the phone and dialed 911. And as I was doing it, I was thinking, should I do this? Oh my God, they're going to come, they're going to take him to jail. Do I want to do this? And I'm battling.
So you're still thinking about his
Yes,
welfare.
you go back and forth.
All the time you're
you
protecting
go back
him.
and
You're protecting
forth.
him,
You go
your
back and
family,
forth. Yes. The kids are not going to have a father. Oh my God, what are people going to think? But I said, you know what? in about 5 seconds, 5 minutes, I could be dead. Then what kind of mother am I going to be if I can protect my children? I dialed 911. And you know what I said that day? I said, when God gave me life, He gave me mine to protect. I am not going to will it to somebody else's abuse. If my God valued me enough to give me a life and think I was valued, then I'm going to protect it.
And your children.
And if I die in the process, at least I know I'm dying. I'm going to die trying. That's it. It was extremely, extremely difficult to pick up that phone and dial 911 and say, I have just been threatened, and please get here as quickly as you can. You know what? They took him to the BreakOUT lockdown clinic to detox, and he was in detox several times, and I did as much as I could, as humanly possible, to help another human being. But in the end, I had started to gain the strength because of the counseling, because of the therapy, right? I still was weak. I was still crying a lot. I still go to therapy. I still go to group therapy, and I'll probably be in it. Victims don't recover. You don't get abused for 21 years, and then it's like, oops, it's over. What I learned? Victims, we get out. But guess what? We get back in as quickly as we get out. Usually with the same abuser, or one just like him.
So now you mentioned that he himself was going through detox and counseling.
To some extent, yes. Mm-hmm.
So how long did you keep a relation with him?
After that incident in December of 2007, I filed for legal separation. He was served, and I filed for a year restraining order, a no contact order, which great judicial system in Florida issued that order. And he said that he is an alcoholic, and he is going to go get help. He self-checked himself in to a clinic in upstate Keyport, New Jersey, locked down 8 weeks. He stayed there 6 weeks and did what's called AMA, Against Medical Advice Walkout, and did not complete the program. Went to a 12-step program, did not complete it. And within about 5 months, I put the separation on hold because I wanted to give everybody an equal opportunity to help themselves. It's a disease. Whether we believe it as a society, alcoholism is a disease. And that's what I learned. And doctors and psychologists can attest to that. You know, it's free forum to explain, you know, better than I can explain it. I gave him about 6 to 8 months after that last time, and he made a decision. He says to me, I will never stop drinking, and I said, I will never tolerate abuse. Thank you very much. Have a great life. And I made my separation, and it was painful. It was extremely painful. I get asked, God, you're so educated and you're so vocal, why did you stay? And you know what I say, God, please don't ask victims why they stay, because if they knew why they stayed, if they knew the answer, they'd have left a long time ago. And I use this example, when we're in Guyana, we get interviewed a lot, and I said, you know, when I opened chapter 25 of my accounting text, it didn't say, oh, if you get abused by your husband, this is how you react. Nobody taught me it. Nobody taught me how to deal with complex emotion when I was a kid. They didn't teach it to me in university. They didn't teach it to me in graduate school. You know what? I had to learn by mistakes, failures, disaster, swallowing my pride and ego, coming out of denial. And I have a